IndyCar World Series, which this year involves races from coast to coast, is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin today for stop number 4, the Dana Rex Mays 200 at State Fair Park. An incident here a year ago caused the Bignotti team to demonstrate their displeasure with a kart decision by flying the skull and crossbones at Cleveland. Their driver, Tom Sneva, the 1983 Indy champion.
We felt we won this race here at Milwaukee all along, and there was some dissension, and they tried to take it away from us on a technicality, but you know, the crew and I all felt like we won that race fair and square. We went to the next couple races and flew a little flag with the skull and crossbones on it to sort of represent the crew's feeling, because they work so hard and they have a lot of pride in what they do, and they felt they weren't treated justly. And fortunately, it was turned around. Justice prevailed, and we ended up winning the race.
The technicality that Tom spoke of involved the car's side pods. They were found to be too low, but Sneva claimed they were lowered by the crowd in victory lane. Tom took the lead from Al Unser with less than 10 laps to go.
Al Unser and Tom Sneva battle for position down the backstretch as they go around Mike Mosley, but Sneva unable to do so. Now in turn 3, here it is, Tom Sneva passing Al Unser in turn 3, and Sneva goes into the lead with 7 laps to go. Tom Sneva takes over the lead once again.
So Tom Sneva took the checkered flag, but for a while, kart took the victory away. A 3-judge independent panel later gave Sneva back his victory here at Milwaukee. But now it's 1984, and 3 races have produced 3 winners. Sneva at Phoenix, Mario Andretti at Long Beach, and Rick Mears at Indianapolis.
And so we greet you again from State Fair Park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the Dana Rex Mays 200. Beautiful weather here this afternoon, 77 degrees. Winds are northwesterly at 12 miles an hour, mostly sunny skies, and only a 10% chance of rain. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Newber. Since 1950, 6 drivers have won the Indianapolis 500 and then come here the very next race and repeated with victory. It's happened 2 times in a row, 2 years ago with Gordon Johncock and last year with Tom Sneva.
And I think it is more than just irony. There is such an emotional crest that you reach when you win a big race like the Indianapolis 500. And what happens is the crew gets relaxed. You know all the big jobs are accomplished, and all those little things that make the difference between finishing first, second, or third, they just seem to get done. And I think that really is a factor, winning Indianapolis, coming here and doing well at Milwaukee.
Last Sunday, we had settled down for a duel between Tom Sneva and Rick Mears for the checkered flag at Indianapolis. But Tom Sneva dropped out of the race. Looks like that battle could be renewed here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think you got one of the best seats in the house right now, those of you at home. If I were there, I'd stay put, because this could be a real excellent race with Tom and Rick up front. Then you mix in Mario Andretti. He's the only other driver who has won on the trail in 1984. He looks ready, and you start thinking about those great Ward, Foyt, Jones duels back in the 1960s, maybe Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip, and Cale Yarborough. This could be a humdinger, so stay close to the set.
As is the case with all of our IndyCar races, Gary Lee is covering the pit area for us. Here's Gary.
Thank you, Bob, and good afternoon. This Milwaukee mile underscores the importance of a fast, efficient pit stop. The race has been lengthened by 50 miles to 200 miles or 200 laps. The crews say they can make it on 2 stops. But remember, the track is only a mile in length. A slow stop could put a driver a lap behind the leaders. This is the 4th stop of the championship series. We've had 3 different winners, and all 3 are starting up in front. On the pole, the winner 1 week ago at the Indianapolis 500, Rick Mears. Outside the front row, the winner at Phoenix, Tom Sneva. And inside the second row, the winner at Long Beach, Mario Andretti. It was just Friday that Andretti said he was looking forward to racing wheel to wheel and side by side with his son, Michael. He'll have that chance today because the Andrettis are starting side by side in row 2.
The Dana Rex Mays 200 is brought to you by Pontiac. Test drive a new Pontiac at your Pontiac dealer, because at Pontiac, we build excitement. And by the Ask For Motor Oil, Pennzoil, protection worth asking for. And by TR3 Auto Polish. You want tough? TR3 is tough. Take it from Mr. T. We'll be back with more from State Fair Park and the Dana Rex Mays 200 in just a moment.
It's been called one of the most innovative American cars ever. Its unique Enduraflex body panels resist minor dents and will never rust. Introducing Pontiac Fiero, America's first mid-engine production car. Fiero, a brilliant example of Pontiac innovation in action. Fiero, only from Pontiac.
We build excitement, Pontiac.
24 cars are lined up, ready to take off and warm up the engines before the start of the 200-mile, 200-lap race here at State Fair Park in Milwaukee. We're on a 1-mile flat paved oval. And let's look at the starting lineup now for today's race. On the pole from Bakersfield, California, in car number 6, driving the Pennzoil March Cosworth, Rick Mears. Qualifying at 143 miles an hour. Outside row number 1, Tom Sneva, car 4 from Paradise Valley, Arizona, in the Texaco Star. The second row, Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, in the Newman Haas Budweiser Lola, car number 3. Outside his son, Michael Andretti, car number 99, the Electrolux Craco March. In the third row, Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, in car number 1, the Miller High Life March. And outside of row number 3, from Milan, Italy, car number 33, Teo Fabi in the Forsyth Skull Bandit March. In the fourth row, car number 5, Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio, in the 7-Eleven Red Roof Inns March. And outside of row number 4, Al Unser Jr., car 7, in the Coors Light Silver Bullet. In the fifth row, Dick Simon, car number 22, the Break Free March, Dick from San Juan Capistrano, California. Outside of row number 5, car 41, Howdy Holmes from Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the Jiffy Mixes March. In the sixth row, Gordon Johncock, car 20, Gordon from Coldwater, Michigan, the STP Oil Treatment March. And on the outside of the sixth row, car number 98, Kevin Cogan from Redondo Beach, California, in the Dubonnet Curbs Record Eagle 84 car powered by Pontiac. The seventh row, Danny Sullivan in car 30 and Danny and Gaius in 25. In the eighth row, Al Holbert in number 21 and Chip Ganassi in number 40. In the ninth row, Chris Neifeld in car 72 and Herm Johnson in 28. The 10th row, Gary Bettenhausen in car number 82 and Ed Pym in number 64. In the 11th row, Jeff Brabham in car number 18 and Roberto Guerrero in number 9. And in the last row, 2 added by Promoter's Option, Scott Brayton in car 37 and Stan Fox in number 24.
Indianapolis, of course, is exciting, and it's an essential part of every season, but it's always great to get back on the trail and go after that championship. Indianapolis car type racing, the major leagues of open wheels.
Well, just a week ago, we were in Indianapolis and saw these guys compete. Now they're on a much shorter racetrack, but it should be a tremendous race. Here is Bobby Rahal driving the 7-Eleven Red Roofs in March.
Rahal had a problem during this week. At first, they felt that he might not even be able to qualify for the race. All sorts of things went wrong. It was primarily an electrical problem. Then late yesterday, as they were getting ready to qualify, during the last practice session, the chassis went away. They worked feverishly. They pulled the car out of line, and then about 10 minutes before qualifying was over, like a bolt of lightning out of the sky, all of a sudden they found all their problems. They put it together. Rahal went out at the last minute and qualified 7th fastest.
We are going to try to establish radio communication with Gary Bettenhausen. Gary, this is Bob Jenkins in the ESPN broadcast booth. Do you copy me?
I can hear you a little bit, but I cannot understand your speed.
All right, Gary in car number 82, starting from the rear of the pack, and we'll be watching his progress throughout the afternoon. This is a 1984 March. The car was purchased during the month of May at Indianapolis. He did not make the starting lineup for the 500, but is here qualifying in 19th position for today's race. The pace car moves off the racetrack, and here come the starters down the front straightaway, and the green flag is out. The Rex Mays Stated 200 is underway. Rick Mears and Tom Sneva are wheel-to-wheel off of turn number 2 and down the backstretch. Now Sneva with the slight advantage going into turn 3. Now Mears with the slight advantage in turn number 3 as they battle for position off of turn 4. And lap number 1, Sneva to the high side of the racetrack and Rick Mears to the inside. Now Mears has the advantage coming off of the second corner and stretches it out just a little bit down the backstretch, but an exciting first lap.
Do you think we'll get to see Mears and Sneva side by side at all today, Bob?
Well, this is what we had anticipated in the closing stages of last weekend's 500. It never happened, but stay tuned because it seems to me that this could go on all afternoon for 200 miles here at Milwaukee. Running in third position is Mario Andretti, fourth is Michael Andretti, and fifth right now is Teo Fabi in car number 33. They go down the backstretch once again with Rick Mears and about a 7 or 8 car length advantage on Tom Sneva. Off of the fourth corner once again to complete lap number 3. Field is getting pretty well strung out already as Rick Mears sets the pace with Tom Sneva pursuing down the backstretch. Mario Andretti is about a half a straightaway behind, and there are the Unzers. Dad in number 1, leading son Al Jr. in car number 7.
Al Unser Sr., of course, a man who 3 times has won the Indianapolis 500. He right now runs in 4th, and here comes son Al Jr. taking a look on the inside as they're going after 6th and 7th position. Al Unser Sr., Al Unser Jr., there they are going through turns 1, now turn 2.
Al Unser in car number 1, the Miller High Life, and right behind him is son Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. going to the outside now at turn number 3, trying to pick up the position, setting his dad up perhaps for a pass coming off of turn number 4, but Dad showing no compassion for his son, at least at this point, as he is trying to hold on to 6th position.
You know, you got to believe, Bob, that it becomes just another driver out on the racetrack. Although deep down inside, I suppose there's a little bit of strand of family ties there, but it's pretty obvious that Al Unser Sr. is not giving any quarter to his younger, or rather to his son, who obviously is running a little quicker at this stage of the race. This will be a 200-mile race, 200 laps, so it doesn't necessarily mean that Al Unser Jr. is going to be ahead of Dad at the end of this race. The cars change a lot. They're very temperamental. There goes Junior to the high side.
Off of turn number 2, going down the backstretch, Al Unser Jr. pulling alongside and now passing his dad and picking up 6th position. Al Unser Jr. moves into 6th. Al Unser Sr. drops back to 7th position. Meanwhile, here is the leader, Rick Mears, in the Pennzoil March, car number 6. He's moving off of the backstretch and already approaching slower traffic as he heads toward the end of the backstretch. The first car that he'll be lapping is Stan Fox in car number 24. Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California, who won his 2nd Indianapolis 500 just a week ago. There is the interval between himself and Tom Sneva. Sneva coming off of the fourth corner. Now Rick Mears goes to the inside as Stan Fox moves very high on the racetrack and allows Rick Mears to go around and lap him.
Well, it only took 7 laps for Mears and Sneva, the pace setters of this race, to move into slower traffic. Stan Fox, one of the people who was added at the promoter's option. Fox running the A.J. Watson Pabst Blue Ribbon sponsored number 24. Spun and touched the wall here during weekend's qualification and practice and had to be added to the tail of the field.
Tom Sneva still about 7 or 8 car lengths behind Rick Mears as Mears now stretches it out just a little bit in turns number 1 and 2. Mario Andretti is still running 3rd. Michael Andretti is 4th. And Al Unser Jr. is running in 5th position. Here's a good battle for 8th and 9th. This involves Kevin Kogan in the American racer. American because it's built by Dan Gurney here in the United States and powered by a Pontiac engine. But Bobby Rahal in the English-built March chassis with a Cosworth engine pulls alongside and tries to pick up the position. But Kevin Kogan explores the Pontiac, steps on the accelerator off of the 4th turn, and hangs on to 7th place.
Well, you know, a lot of people felt that the stock block should have just a little more torque, particularly on the short tracks, than what the Cosworths. And in that particular lap, it certainly looked like that Kevin Kogan, when he keeps the RPMs up, really does have a nice amount of torque coming out of the corners. Rahal had kind of out-braked, if you will, Kevin going into turn number 3, but on the exit, Kevin floored it and took off. Kevin, by the way, has made the best move of anybody running up near the front. He started in 12th in that maroon and white number 88, and right behind Kevin and Bobby Rahal, Chip Ganassi lurks.
Kevin Kogan qualified at 136.825 in that Pontiac-powered car, good enough for 12th starting position, and is running strong here in the early stages of this race. We move up just a little bit on the racetrack and pick up this battle between Teo Fabi and Al Unser Sr. Al Unser Jr. has moved away, and now Al Unser Jr. goes to the the inside and tries to pass Teo Fabi in turn number 1.
Teo Fabi, the man who was so spectacular in 1983. They've not really been able to reproduce the pace that they were running at Indianapolis and Milwaukee a year ago so far in 84. Teo was the 6th fastest qualifier here. He had an incident with his crew during the running of the 500 when he really had hopes perhaps of pulling out of the race. He was not happy with the performance of the race car. They seem to have that patch back up. And Teo Fabi, the jet setter, who has been jumping back and forth on both sides of the Atlantic, is well represented here in the field today.
You're watching 6, 7, and 8. Teo Fabi and Bobby Allis, Sr. and Kevin Cogan.
A couple minutes ago, we commented that Chip Ganassi was right behind this pack of cars we're watching right now that includes Fabi and Allis, Sr. on your screen. Notice now that was Gordy Johncock as we go back up to the front. Here are the leaders, first and second, and Sneva has closed in.
Tom Sneva is beginning to narrow the distance between himself and Rick Mears. We have completed 15 laps out of 200, and the top 5 show Mears in the lead, Sneva second, Mario Andretti third, Michael Andretti fourth, and Al Unser Jr. fifth. We'll be back with more action from State Fair Park in just a moment.
This is a stress test. Rick Mears, 1984 Indy 500 winner, and the Pennzoil Penske Indy car had to run at speeds of over 200 miles per hour, with the engine hitting over 10,000 RPM. This is a stress test, and this is no picnic for a motor oil. This is where Rick Mears, IndyCar champ, tests Pennzoil's quality and high technology to the limit.
course, we lost Michael on the highway before our season premiered. I think it's nice perhaps to take an opportunity right now as we watch that Craco car stream around the racetrack. And Michael, we remember and we miss you a lot.
So far this year, Michael Andretti has finished 3rd at Phoenix, 5th to make that 10th at Long Beach, 3rd at Phoenix, and 5th in last weekend's Indianapolis 500. As the rookies put on a heck of a show last weekend at Indianapolis, with Roberto Guerrero finishing in 2nd position, Michael Andretti in 5th, and Al Holbert finishing 4th in that race.
Well, despite the fact that Tom Sneva has had quite a time getting around these two second-generation drivers, and Sneva and Al Unser Jr. almost come together coming out of turn number 4. You saw Sneva had to take evasive action. Al Unser Sr. battling on the racetrack with Michael Andretti, did not want to give up any ground. And I'll tell you, this is almost like a race for the lead. Sneva, watch him come back with a vengeance. Now Al Unser Jr. once again moves up into Sneva's way. Remember that Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti are battling for position, and Al Unser Jr. is not going to let Tom Sneva get by easily.
Well, while all this is happening and Tom Sneva is trying desperately to pass these 4th and 5th place cars, Rick Mears really isn't making up much time, as you might think he would. He is 10 seconds behind Tom Sneva. Rick Mears in 2nd place is 10 seconds behind Tom Sneva. Now Sneva moves to the inside. Al Unser Jr. moves slightly to the outside and lets Tom pass. Now there are only 4 cars on the lead lap. And the 4th place, Michael Andretti, is right ahead of Tom Sneva as they go down the straightaway once again and head toward turn number 1. While Tom is trying to pass Michael, Michael is trying to pass Chip Ganassi.
Bob, I'll tell you, Sneva's given it all he has. Both of those guys are out of shape coming out of turn number 2. Sneva was a little out of shape coming out of turn number 4.
We have a problem up in turn number 4 as a car spun, I believe, up there, and there were a lot of cars following him. They all got on the brakes and managed to avoid spinning, but the car high on the racetrack in turn number 4 looks like
it's either Danny Angaius or Chris Neifel. It's Chris Neifel. I can see the 72 now, the spy aerobics on the rear wing. Chris apparently has made contact. You can see the right front wheel is a canter, and I think that Chris Neifel's day is over. Here is the 2nd place car of Rick Mears into the pit area. Now Sneva, I don't think he was able to get into the pits.
Yes, he is.
He is in the pits. There's Tom.
And Tom having problems getting out of the pits. Looks like he may have stalled the engine. Rick Mears is blasting out of the pits. Let's go down quickly to Gary Lee.
He did not kill the engine, but he had trouble engaging the car in gear. They changed 3 tires, did not change the left front, topped off the 40 gallons of fuel. He was underway and again almost killed it, got it in gear, got out just before Rick Mears went sailing by.
So on the racetrack, Rick Mears will fall in behind Tom Sneva, but of course that 10-second advantage that Tom Sneva had now melts to essentially 0 as the cars are slowed behind the pace car. Several other cars are making their routine pit stops. We are on lap number 56, and we are cautioned because of an incident at turn number 4, a relatively minor incident involving Chris Neifel. So the yellow is on. Tom Sneva is leading with Rick Mears in 2nd. We'll be back in just a moment at Milwaukee.
Pontiac, we build excitement that you love to drive. Pontiac, we build excitement that you've got to try. Pontiac, built with a feel for the road. Excitement to drive for feeling
If you're a smoker, inside this little can is a legitimate alternative. This is Skoal Bandits, an individual portion of wintergreen flavored tobacco in a neat, pre-moistened pouch. What you do is put one between your lip and gum. What you get is great tobacco taste without lighting up. And you can enjoy it wherever you are. If you're a smoker, try Skoal Bandits. 20 pouches to a can. Take a pouch instead of a puff.
Back at Milwaukee, we take a look at the track records here at State Fair Park. Qualifying mark was set in July of 1982 by Rick Mears at 143.839. The race record was set back in 1976 by Al Unser at 121.907 miles an hour. We did not see a track record here this weekend. Rick Mears came close. His record is 143.8. He qualified today for this race at 143.010 miles an hour, and he was almost 2 miles an hour faster than Tom Sneva, who started outside of row number 1.
And the interesting thing about qualifying here, last year 29.1 was enough to make the field. This year it took 27, so we are 2 seconds faster by and large on the average for the field.
Tom Sneva has been setting an absolutely torrid pace here at Milwaukee today. He qualified last week for the 500 last weekend at 210, but has been very vocal about slowing the Indianapolis-type cars down.
Well, we need to take some of the aerodynamic security blankets away from the cars. They've got big wings on them. The bottoms are shaped in such a way to produce the ground effects, or actually suction to give better traction in the corner. And what we got to do is go back to more of a flat bottom configuration, which will take away some of the aerodynamic effects. And then we got to move the wings down and make them smaller possibly. And if that's not enough, then we got to make the tires a little smaller.
Tom, do you think you have a lot of support in this? Is there going to be a groundswell of opinion about this?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's needed. It's a situation where the people want to see close wheel-to-wheel racing, and that's what we better be heads up about and be aware of. If we lose track of that, then you know, we're not going to reach the potential that this sport's got. So it's something that's needed. It'll be a better show. I think it'll lead to closer competition, and you know, we at Indianapolis, you know, we run awful fast, but we've got to be more interested in what's going to make our whole series grow and that's the name of the game.
That is Tom Sneva, the former school teacher from Spokane, Washington, now making his home in Paradise Valley, Arizona, leading the Rex Mays 200. But Rick Mears now is not too far behind him, and we'll see whether or not Rick is able to stretch out the advantage as he did in the first part of this race before we went yellow. Now he moves to the inside and puts another lap on Teo Fabi, who's having a relatively tough time in IndyCar racing this year. Last year, Teo Fabi was setting track records and starting on the pole in many races, but it has not been the case this year, as Sneva once again very low in turn number 1. Let's go down to Gary Lee, who's with Chris Neifeld, who had the problem up in turn number 4 a few laps ago.
It's a long walk back to the pit area for Chris. What happened to the car 72 Primus?
Well, I was kind of weeding my way through the traffic, and I came up on Stan Fox. I went underneath Stan going into turn 3, and I was all the way beside him. When he raised his hand to signal to go in the pit, he turned left and just hit me right in my right front corner. He just ran right into me. And shoot, you know, when you're alongside a guy and he turns into you, there isn't much you can do, and that kind of put me out.
Too much damage to repair.
Oh yeah, it kind of knocked the right front of the car off, and it's too bad because I was running real good. I'd moved up a bunch of spots, and the car felt real nice. But my day's over.
Disconcerted Chris Neifeld out of the race.
I'll tell you, Chris has been a hard luck driver so far in his IndyCar career. He seems like he's in the wrong spot at the wrong time in a lot of races, including last year's Michigan 500, in which Gordon Johncock suffered the broken leg. He was in that crash.
Bob, you know, he really had moved down. We were showing him unofficially around 14th or 15th, and was only 1 lap down. I say only because with today's pace of Tom Sneva and Rick Mears, if you're only 1 lap down after those first 50 green flag laps, you're doing okay.
Tom Sneva moving between Dick Simon and Roberto Guerrero in turn number 1. Roberto Guerrero on that number 9 Master Mechanics march. Tom Sneva has won over $2 million in his career and would like to add to that here this afternoon with a victory. This race, of course, named for one of the great drivers, Rex Mays. There is a plaque down in the wall in turn number 1 to honor the driver back in the 30s and 40s who competed here many times.
Well, the plaque is right there because of a sportsmanship-like gesture that Mays made. Duke Dinsmore, an old friend of ours from sprint car fame, was involved in an accident on this track when it was dirty. He was thrown from the car, and Rex Mays actually pulled out of the race, stopped his car, and went to the aid of his fellow fallen warrior.
Tom Sneva off of turn number 4. Herm Johnson in car number 28, who qualified very well for this year's Indianapolis 500 and who qualified for today's race outside of row number 9, is about to be lapped by Tom Sneva. Off of the second turn and on to the back stretch. Sneva electing not to challenge, at least at this particular moment, as Herb Johnson holds the line in turns 3 and 4. Now Tom Sneva moving out of the 4th turn onto the straightaway. We'll see if he makes a move on the Eau Claire, Wisconsin driver this time. No indication that he's in any particular hurry. Now he moves to the inside and gets about alongside Herb and then backs off momentarily. Rick Mears is only about 6 or 7 or 8 car lengths now behind Tom Sneva. So Sneva is not pulling away from Rick as he did earlier.
Well, there is third place involved in a battle. That's Michael Andretti in the blue and yellow number 99 and Al Unser Jr. in the black number 7. They're putting another lap on Guerrero, and also Chip Ganassi in the bright red Old Milwaukee STP number 40. That's Ganassi, the bright red car, then Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. Incidentally, while we're watching this tussle for third position, Michael Andretti's teammate Jeff Brabham, who has really struggled today, has pulled into the pits. Michael Andretti gets underneath Ganassi, and Michael opens up about 7 or 8 car lengths over his other sibling friend from another racing family, Al Unser Jr. in the black car. There's Eddie Pym. You might have heard it. It's that deep-throated stock block, which certainly stands out, at least vocally, from all the other Cosworths on the speedway.
As far as engines are concerned, we had Scott Brayton, of course, starting this race in a Buick-powered race car. Kevin Cogan in a Pontiac, and then the normally aspirated Chevrolet engine driven by Ed Pym from Dublin, Ohio. There is Michael Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and the 5th place driver, Dick Simon in car number 22, has come into the pits, and the jack, it seems, has not lifted the car off of the ground on the right side. They are putting fuel into the car and checking the rubber. They're not changing rubber on the left side. They're waiting for the car to get full of fuel. There it is, and they splash some water on the side of it to wash it down, and Dick Simon goes back into the race as Herb Johnson has also come in for a stop, and away he goes.
Well, that little puff of smoke that you saw coming from Simon's car was coming out of the vent that is attempting to cool the brakes. He used the brakes heavy on a flat 1-mile racetrack, and that smoke was simply all the hot metal down in the brake compartment of the car. Simon making an on-scheduled pit stop. He was doing very well. He was running in the 6th position. He had just gone 1 lap down to the leader. He's had a great year so far, particularly on the short, flat paved racetracks.
We mentioned Scott Brayton from Coldwater, Michigan, a 2nd-generation driver. His dad, Lee, competed many years in the sprints around the Midwest. There is Scott in car number 37 in the Buick Dealers of America March. That car powered by a Buick. Scott had problems twice at Indianapolis, wrecked the car, but he was able to make the race. And he right now is running in 21st position here at Milwaukee. And a couple of interesting pit crew members on that team, Larry.
Yeah, certainly nobody want to be critical about Scott around, that's for sure. A couple of guys who normally wear, well, this guy here is usually in a brown and orange uniform, but it's the brown and orange of the Cleveland Browns. A graduate of Ohio State. He acknowledges our presence down there. And Bob, I'm sure everybody will be interested to know that I found out that Cousineau and I lived in the same dorm when we attended Ohio State. Of course, he's much younger than I.
Amazing the facts you come up with. There you can see how Rick Mears is not very far behind Tom Sneva. Now, the question at this point, Larry, is before that yellow, we saw Sneva just absolutely dominating and pulling away from Rick. Since we have had the yellow, has Sneva slowed down, or has Mears been able to perhaps turn up the boost a little bit and stay with Tom?
My opinion is calculated rhythm, and I'll tell you what that means. Remember earlier I said that it seemed like Sneva was in a position where he could really bury the most of the rest of the field in that first long green flag segment. He's got that accomplished. What he has done, he has narrowed down the field. He has increased the odds that he'll do well in this race if he finishes the event. Almost everybody who is a potential threat, except for 2 or 3 other drivers other than the 2 on the screen, is now a lap down. Just a guess, it could be set up. Maybe it's gone away a little bit, but right now, Tom and and Rick don't really have a reason to go out and put another full lap on the rest of the field. Why risk using up the race car? So that's just a guess, and I think that both of them are probably about where they want to be right now, and it's somewhat of a calculated pace, although they are still certainly running faster than everybody else.
Sneva and Mears first and second here in Milwaukee. By the way, Rick Mears won his first Indianapolis car race in 1981 right here, and he has not found victory since then on this particular racetrack. The leader down the backstretch from our camera inside of turn number 3, Tom Sneva. Off of the corner and onto the straightaway once again. This time down, he'll complete 80 laps. Right behind him in pursuit is Rick Mears, still running third in this race at the point. At this point is Al Unser Jr. Fourth is Mario Andretti, and fifth is Michael Andretti in car number 99.
And the rest of the top 10, and all these guys one lap down. Number 1, Al Unser Sr. runs 6. Kevin Cogan having a great day. Kevin is up to 7th position, where he's been since about lap number 4 or 5. In 8th position, Howdy Holmes in car number 41. 9th is Dick Simon, although he may have slipped a little bit after that extra pit stop. And in 10th, Bobby Rahal in the 7-Eleven, car number 5. Those are the top 10. 5 of them one lap down already.
81 laps are completed. There is Rick Mears in the Pennzoil March, as the leaders have now come up on slower traffic once again. Danny Sullivan being passed, and a whole group of cars right ahead of Tom Sneva. Ed Pim, Bobby Rahal, and Dick Simon included in the group. Look at Mears maneuver that car low and then high to pass the back markers. Tom Sneva off of turn number 2, looking to pass Dick Simon down the backstretch. He steps on the accelerator, but does not choose to pass, at least at this point. He'll wait till he comes off of the corner and down the straightaway, undoubtedly. We'll continue to watch the situation here as Rick Mears now is pulled right alongside Bobby Rahal. Tom Sneva looking inside, but not making a move at this point. Now he goes high on the track and tries the high groove, the outside line, but still unable to pass Dick Simon in the break-free march. Down the backstretch they go once again. Tom Sneva and Rick Mears behind Dick Simon, and again he cannot find the opportunity to pass Dick.
I'm betting that unless it's given to him, I don't think Rick Mears will challenge for the lead at this point, even if he could. I get a feeling that Rick Mears is just filling Tom Sneva's mirrors, and he wants to sit there for a few laps and find out just exactly what Sneva has, at least at this point in the race. Also remember that the cars are, about 70 to 75% full of fuel right now. That's going to cut down the performance just a little bit, going to slow you down. But also note that they just put another lap on Rahal and Simon, 2 more of the drivers in the top 10. So Sneva and Mears just continue to pound the pavement, and I'll tell you, they're not only burying the rest of the field, they are drilling them all the way through to the other side of the earth. Everybody else is going to come out in China if this keeps up.
We're glad you could join us live here at State Fair Park in Milwaukee for today's running of the Rex Bays 200. There used to be 2 IndyCar races here at Milwaukee each year, a 150 in the spring and then a 200-miler in the fall, but they have gone to a 1-race format here at Milwaukee. And right now, Tom Sneva and Rick Mears are running 1-2, followed by Al Unser Jr., Mario Andretti, and Michael Andretti. 85 laps out of 200 completed. Well, earlier this year, we asked some spectators, who is the best-looking stock car driver? We asked some spectators here the same question about IndyCar drivers.
Who's the best-looking race driver and why?
Well, Kevin Cogan, he's got to be. Single. Pete Holzberg. Oh, I have to say Chris Neifel, of course.
Oh, don't you know? Roberto Guerrero.
Chris Neifel.
Danny Sullivan.
Rick Mears. Is it looks that win in this race?
We would have gotten wiped out that day if it hadn't been for the Air Force. They came in, they dropped napalm all over the place. It got like an oven with the heat.
Time Life Books and Boston Publishing bring you the Vietnam Experience, the first book series that puts the war into historical perspective.
Everywhere you went, you felt like you were going to be attacked, and a lot of times I wish I could, I would be shot just so I could get it over with.
To re-examine the battles, the politics, the people. Each book brings you closer to the answers, starting with America Takes Over. So call toll-free and take another look at the Vietnam experience.
I love this country. It was a great honor to serve in Vietnam.
Call 1-800-228-3322. Examine your first book free. Keep it, pay $14.95. Others follow about one every other month. Cancel anytime. Call 1-800-228-3322.
We are back in Milwaukee where a two-car crash has just occurred. Roberto Guerrero involved in the number 9 Master Mechanic Special. And the other driver involved is Al Holbert in number 21. There's Guerrero's car sitting toward the 4th turn side of the straightaway, and closer to the start-finish line is the number 21 CRC Chemicals car driven by Al Holbert. There was contact between those cars, and now everybody else is coming in for pit stops.
Bob, a couple of things contributed to that. First of all, very little attrition in this race. Only Scott Brayton, to the best of our knowledge, has pulled behind the pit wall as we're watching Rick Mears, who has run in second place most of this day, making what for these guys is a leisurely paced pit stop under yellow. Scott Brayton had a problem with his fuel system. He's the only car that had pulled out. That means we had 27, or make that 23 people still on the racetrack. Traffic was very heavy, and there's a possibility that the inexperience of Roberto Guerrero on an oval may have contributed to this. He came out of turn number 4. He was in heavy traffic, and he simply didn't see, I believe, he simply did not see Al Holbert in his path. And he actually squeezed Al into the wall. Something, of course, may have broken on the car. There is Roberto, who had squeezed Al into the wall. The aftermath of the crash for him, he comes down, touches the inside wall. And you can see Holbert did a pretty good job. He ran into the outside wall primarily with the right rear. He kept that car going straight, and he steered it right down the center of the front stretch and brought it to a halt close to the inside wall.
Fortunately for Al Holbert, the rear suspension broke on the car, so he had control of it, was able to guide it to the inside. But Guerrero, on the other hand, was unable to control his car, and he hit, although relatively slightly, the inside wall on the main straightaway. So pit stops have been made once again. 92 laps have been completed, and the safety crews now are here on the main straightaway in front of a tremendous crowd that's turned out on this beautiful day in Milwaukee to witness this 200-mile race for IndyCars, part of the PPG IndyCar World Series. And we have several races for you this year that we're going to be doing live for you. We'll next be at Portland, Oregon for the initial visit to that city by these kart IndyCars. Larry will be there for that race, and the same day I will be in Montreal, Canada, to bring you a double-header auto racing. We'll have coverage of the Formula One race, and Larry will be in Portland for the kart IndyCars.
And also coming up, in addition to those two, at that date, of course, again, Sunday the 17th of June, the best of America's open wheel cars and the best of the world's in Grand Prix. Also going to squeeze a Pocono Grand National stock car race in pretty soon here too, so keep your eyes peeled to your local listings.
We are under yellow at Milwaukee because of an accident involving Roberto Guerrero and Al Holbert. 93 laps have been completed here, and we will be back with more live coverage here in Milwaukee in just a moment. Right now, Tom Sneva being shown as the leader, with Al Unser Jr. now second.
One shock absorber is so superior it has been used by every world champion for the past 13 years. Kone. Kone. So superior they're standard on every Ferrari, on every Aston Martin, on Mustang SVO. Kone. The ultimate performance shock. Adjustable for wear. Guaranteed for life. Less body lean. More stability. Crisper handling. Put the world's finest performance shocks on your car. Kone. Proven superior.
A little loss of control here could ruin your whole day.
Test pilot Chuck Yeager for AC Delco.
Even on the highway, I stay on top of my car with the new Delco Performer shock absorber. Its sealed gas cell eliminates air bubbles and provides a constant cushion in lab tests and on the highway. It's the only shock your car will ever need. Never wait for trouble. Get the Delco Performer.
Call 800 AC Delco for a retailer near you.
This is a stress test. Rick Mears, 1984 Indy 500 winner and the Pennzoil Penske IndyCar had to run at speeds of over 200 miles per hour, with the engine hitting over 10,000 RPM. This is a stress test, and this is no picnic for a motor oil. This is where Rick Mears, IndyCar champ, tests Pennzoil's quality and high technology to the limit. That's why you want Pennzoil protection in your car. Pennzoil, high technology and quality. Ask for it.
ESPN live on this Sunday afternoon from State Fair Park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Dana Rex Mays 200 for Indy cars. And the safety crews are taking the wrecked cars of Roberto Guerrero and Al Holbert off the racetrack. Here are the cars out of the race: Stan Fox, Chris Neifel, Scott Brayton, Roberto Guerrero, and Al Holbert. By the way, Al Holbert was running 17th and Roberto Guerrero was running 21st when the accident occurred up in turn number 4.
There's a list of the people who are out of the race, and included in addition to Holbert and Guerrero, Scott Brayton, Chris Neifel, and Stan Fox. There's the Canadian Tire crew rig. Remember that Jacques Villeneuve was to be their Indianapolis car driver for the 1984 season, and Jacques was involved in one of the most serious-looking crashes in practice for the 1984 Indianapolis 500-mile race. Jacques was not cleared to drive here again this weekend. This time it was a Canadian doctor at home who said that he is still suffering from occasional dizziness. So the crew was here, the car was ready to go. They were working on it even as late as yesterday leading into qualifying, but Jacques was not allowed to compete. The doctor said no. We also had a report that the crew is considering giving Ludwig Heimrath Jr. a shot at this Indianapolis car ride. He may be practicing in it this week in hopes that if Jacques Villeneuve is not ready soon, that perhaps Ludwig will have a shot.
There is the car driven by Mario Andretti, the Newman Haas Budweiser Lola, running third in the race at this point. Mario started third at a qualifying speed of 140.100 miles an hour. Mario Andretti, who was eliminated from this year's Indianapolis 500 because of an incident in the pit area, looking for a much better fate here in Milwaukee today.
Some pit notes as we look at Mario Andretti. There he is on your screen. Right behind him is Al Unser Jr. as well as his own son, Michael Andretti. They're going at it for third, fourth, and fifth. Just a couple of pit notes. Car number 7 was involved in a minor collision as we go green again during the last green flag session. They looked the car over very carefully during the last yellow flag.
So we go back to racing with 97 laps completed. We are nearing the halfway point of this 200-lap race. There's the leader, Tom Sneva, leading the pack down the backstretch. Now the second place car of Rick Mears is about a straightaway behind, and Rick Mears has a lot of traffic to move through to catch Tom Sneva. So again, we may see Sneva take off like a rocket, and Mario Andretti is coming into the pits. Something apparently went wrong with that car as he got on the accelerator after the yellow, and Mario Andretti screeches to a halt in his pit area, and he may be suffering some serious problems, or perhaps just a tire problem. Here's Gary Lee.
It looks like the wheel lug has come off the left front. Indeed, the left front wheel was loose and almost off the car as Mario brought it in. They're going to top off the fuel, change the right rear, change the right front, and now go to work on that left front. So indeed, under the yellow, he was able to bring it back in. Had he accelerated on the green, it could have been a disastrous effect because that wheel would have come off. Now again, they're working with the impact wrench, trying to secure the left front. Andretti wraps the throttle on the number 3 Budweiser Lola, and they're still working on it. They still cannot get the luck nut to go on. Now they're changing nut. They've got to the 3rd luck nut. Now they're twisting it on by hand, and that one's not working. Andretti trying to watch what is going on from the cockpit. He spent over a minute now in the pit area. The car is still jacked up. There's a quizzical expression on some of these crew members down here. And again, they go to a lug nut, the 4th lug nut. This time it works. The impact wrench has it on. The jacks are down, and Mario with a very, very long and very costly pit stop.
So Mario Andretti, who was running 3rd, is now several laps behind as he gets back out on the racetrack. But again, bad luck has struck Mario Andretti and the Newman Haas racing team.
Almost unbelievable, Bob, and I'm sitting here scratching my own head trying to figure out why 3 wouldn't work and a 4th one would after they'd gone through 3 lug bolts, or rather lug nuts. I kind of figured they may have had a terminal problem. The length of the stop, by the way, Gary was exactly right. As we look at the leader, Tom Sneva, still out front and running very comfortably, was 1 minute, 19.5 seconds for Mario Andretti on that pit stop. But a real puzzling situation there with the left front on Mario Andretti's Lola race car. This, by the way, is a brand new car out of the box this week. It is chassis number 3. This is the first time they've used it this year, and it probably will turn out to be their oval track chassis for the 1984 season.
Tom Sneva has won the last 3 of 4 races on this track. He is leading at this point with 104 laps completed, and his lead over second place, Rick Mears, is a little more than 5.5 seconds, as Rick Mears is still trying to get through some traffic behind Tom Sneva. Here is Tom in the Texaco Star, moving down the back stretch and setting the car into turn number 3.
Here's a partial list of some of the people still out on the racetrack, and the attrition has been incredibly small. As we look at the interval between first, there goes Sneva, he just went by. Out of your screen, the yellow car, that'll be Rick Mears. About a straightaway, about that interval that Bob Jenkins suggested to you about 10-15 laps ago. In addition to the 2 of them and the other people on the same lap, Howdy Holmes, Kevin Colgan still runs out there. All these people, by the way, are 1 lap down. Al Unser Sr., Bobby Rahal, Gordy Johncock, Chip Ganassi up in the top 15. Danny Ongaias having a consistent but not front-running day. Dick Simon, Gary Bettenhausen, Herm Johnson, Teo Fabi. He had to pit early, lost a couple of laps. Danny Sullivan in the DSR. They knew they were going to be behind, but because of commitments, they wanted to race. Jeff Brabham and Ed Pym in one of the other stock blocks. That's the list of the people still out in the race.
Mario Andretti now will be the next car that Tom Sneva puts a lap on, as we zero in on Chip Ganassi in car number 40, and behind him Howdy Holmes in car number 41. They are being passed right now by Al Unser Jr. They're in the black car. Herm Johnson, the lead car in this pack, but he is not in contention for a spot. Here is Al Unser Jr. moving to the inside as they come down the straightaway. Al Unser Jr. passing Chip Ganassi going into turn number 1. Ganassi in that number 40 Old Milwaukee march. Make that a Wildcat. Ganassi running the Wildcat here this weekend.
Well, it's sort of a wild march or a march cat or something along those lines. It's actually one of those hybrids. They're trying to get as many miles as they can out of the Wildcat design, and there's some new experimental stuff on that car this week, and Chip Ganassi went out and just put her in the field, so a pretty good job for Chip Ganassi. By the way, we saw Howdy Holmes about a lap ago. He was in this pack of cars. There's Al Unser Jr. He runs real strong up into the top 3. Howdy Holmes, by the way, has now crept up into the number 5 position. That's Herm Johnson, who's several laps down with the orange wing on the front. But Howdy Holmes in the center of the screen right there, quietly now up to 5th position, with the dropping by the wayside in terms of laps lost in the racetrack of Mario Andretti. Good racing here, Bob. These guys, all 5 of them are running in the top 15. I think there are 3 different race laps represented by these 5 guys. They're really going at it.
And Gordon Johncock is also involved in the battle among these cars. We'll go down to Gary Lee and find out a little bit more about what Mario Andretti's problem was when he came into the pits a few laps ago.
Well, apparently during the pit stop under the yellow, the threads were stripped on the race car itself. When the lug nut went on, it did not secure the wheel. Andretti realized he had a loose wheel, came back in. There was one of the lugs they tried to get on, and you can see that it actually stripped the threads on the lug nut. They actually went through 4 of these lug nuts until they could find one that would fit on the race car, and the impact wrench could actually get the wheel secure so Mario could go back out.
That's the story of Mario Andretti. The story of Tom Sneva is that of speed and dominance so far in this race. He's coming down to complete lap 112 with still about a 5-second advantage on Rick Mears running second. Al Unser Jr. is still third. Michael Andretti is fourth. And Al Unser Sr. is running in 5th position. So, Tom Sneva looking good here as we've completed more than half of this race, and we'll be back with more live from Milwaukee in a moment.
Racing. From the inside, no one covers it like Auto Week. Auto Week makes you an insider at the world's great race circuits every week. In the pits, behind the scenes, even in the cockpit with racing driver columnists in Formula One, NASCAR, and kart. Inside coverage just days after the race. And Auto Week puts you inside the world's most exciting cars, right behind the wheel. Auto Week takes you inside the whole automotive scene. Personalities, great cars of the past, columnists with inside scuttlebutt. Let Auto Week make you an insider, too. Call for a year's subscription to Auto Week. 52 issues for just $17.25. 25% off the regular price. Call 1-800-544-1000 to get Auto Week at the lowest price ever, just 33 cents an issue. Call
Penske made the decision, and crew made the decision to come in. Apparently they wanted to make some adjustments. And they did that on lap 90, and when they did, they topped off the fuel, which means he's going to be able to go distance. Peter Parrott, of course, the crew chief on Rick Mears' car, making those adjustments, but he cannot go the distance. Rick, too, will have to stop one more time. Right now, Tom Sneva has Rick Mears in his sight, so he's going to be feeling very comfortable about that. Our closest estimation, and it was corroborated on the radio by Roger Penske, is that Rick will have to stop around lap 160. That is 15 laps away. There is Mears in the yellow car, Tom Sneva in the white, black, and red Texaco trim behind him. But again, Rick Mears will have to stop one more time. That'll put him in rhythm together, and we'll see how it shakes down after the Mears pit stop in about 15 laps.
Well, we have seen a very clean and safe race so far. Chris Neifel was knocked out of competition when he made contact with Stan Fox up in the fourth turn, and then a two-car accident here on the main straightaway involving Roberto Guerrero and Al Holbert, but the damage not serious there either. Rick Mears still trying to pass Michael Andretti here. Mears is shown as the leader.
There you see an unusually designed front-end race car. That's Gary Bettenhausen in that white car. And if it looks to you like you're an experienced viewer, there's Michael Andretti finding a new lane on the high side. Tom Sneva says, hey, I think that's going to work. He tries it, but he doesn't get through like Michael did. We started to talk about the unusual shape of the front end of the white car there on the left-hand side of your screen. That's Gary Bettenhausen. That is, by the way, right on the nose cone, half of a 1972 Eagle wing on the front of Gary Bettenhausen's car. The rear wing, by the way, is off of two different Lightnings, vintage 1978 and 1981. Gary Bettenhausen runs a hybrid out here today. We are teasing him, Bob. We call it a Light Eagle Marchenhausen. And that's probably about the closest thing you can come to defining it.
Well, you got a question. Oh, and Rick Mears looked like had to get on the brakes very hard as he was racing with Michael Andretti there. A little puff of smoke from the rear tires, but Mears saved it and is moving down the backstretch rather well. We'll take a look at it again to see if we can determine exactly what happened in turn number one as Mears to the inside tried to pass Michael Andretti.
Well, at this point, Michael and Rick are on the same lap. Michael runs fourth right now, or make that third, and there you see, as exactly as you called it, Bob, Rick had to get on the brakes to keep him colliding on the outside with Michael.
Word from the cart officials is that Howdy Holmes has been penalized a lap because of running over an air hose on his most recent pit stop. Now Rick Mears has been able to get around Michael Andretti. This is the way they're running. Rick Mears is in the lead. Al Unser Jr. is second. Michael Andretti is third. A lap down in fourth is Tom Sneva, but remember, he has made his final pit stop, whereas the others have not. And in fifth spot now is Al Unser Sr. Rick Mears' career earnings well over $2 million, $2,405,000 to be exact. On the screen, Rick Mears, Michael Andretti, and Tom Sneva. Sneva, by the way, celebrated his 36th birthday last Friday. And while we're expressing birthday wishes, we know there are a couple of people, and one especially watching us in Indianapolis, Indiana, who passed up a birthday celebration to be with us and watch this race. We're talking about Bob Laycock, who runs the press room at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and whose son Danny is a employee of ESPN, helping us with our telecast. So happy birthday to Bob Laycock. The situation is that Rick Mears' crew is beginning to signal Rick that he may want to think about making a pit stop.
There's Rick Mears going around the high side of Howdy Holmes. Howdy, by the way, he's had a competitive day. He's a couple of laps down. Matter of fact, I think he just went 3 laps down to the leader, Rick Mears. But Howdy runs in 7th position on the same lap with Mario Andretti. Mario, of course, lost his in the pits.
Rick Mears, the leader at the Dana Rex Mays 200 here in Milwaukee.
Rick, how does it feel to win Indianapolis 500?
I'll tell you, it felt really good to win at Indy again. I really felt better than it did the first time. Usually they say the first time's the best, but the way everything had been going, the second time was the best. And hopefully, if we can get our third, that'll be better yet.
Rick, where were you between the time you won the race afterwards and
the interview that you gave between 8 and 9 o'clock the same night?
Well, between the race and the last time I was on television, we'd already done a little Miller Time celebration.
How would you feel running the last 3 laps of the race?
Well, the last few laps of the race were the toughest. When Sneva was running, I had to think about him, and that kept my mind off everything and just on my job. But when Sneva fell out, then I started getting nervous, started worrying about the car and worrying about making a mistake, and those were the toughest laps, the last 3 or 4.
Rick, are you ready to move over for Tom Sneva?
Well, we're ready to move over for Tom Sneva, but I tell you, the car will be awful wide if he gets there.
I asked him how long he'd be driving.
Well, I think to do something well, anything you choose to do, no matter what you do, you have to enjoy what you're doing. So I don't know how long I'm going to continue to drive him. I'll continue to drive him as long as it's fun and I enjoy it and I can put out my best effort.
Rick, what is your phone number?
Well, the phone number is unlisted, Linda, but give me a holler and I'll give it to you.
Linda Vaughn, of course, is who he's referring to and who asked the last question. Well, the situation now is Bobby Rahal has blown an engine, or at least a big puff of smoke from the rear of that car, and that has brought out a yellow flag. That means that the field is slowed, and now Rick Mears will be able to make his final pit stop under yellow, whereas Tom Sneva had to make his under green a few laps ago. They are working on the Bobby Rahal car, but from the indication and the smoke in the rear of that race car as he went down the backstretch, I don't know whether he's going to be able to get back into the race or not.
Well, Bob, here's an interesting situation. I do not know how this is shaken down as far as actual positioning on the racetrack goes, but I'm wondering now if Rick Mears would not be in a position perhaps to make a pit stop and still stay ahead of Tom Sneva. I don't even know if Tom could get back on the same lap. I have a feeling that if Rick were to stop right now, there is the mentor of that team, Roger Penske. I think that if Rick were to stop right now, he'd come back out in the lead. And Roger right now is checking on the scoring in his own pit area, trying to decide what exactly their best move is. There's Mario Andretti, who has come out, and the report is he lost the wheel. The left rear, is it perhaps missing? Yes, it is. There it is. So Mario Andretti having wheel problems for the second time in this race. Remember earlier, and Rick Mears, our leaders in the pits.
Larry, I think you're absolutely right. Because the cars are slowed, Rick is going to be able to pit without losing a lap. Here's Gary Lee.
And no tire change. They top off the fuel. A very fast stop for Rick Mears. And once again, the same melody that we had in the Sneva camp. The radio is not working. Rick came in, tried to come in immediately as the yellow came out. He signaled for him to stay out there so the pace car could pick him up as the leader. So once again, no tire change. A very fast refueling job by the part of the Roger Penske organization.
All right, and Rick Mears blends into the rest of the field as Mario Andretti begins to move now, despite the fact that he has no left rear wheel. Apparently he's going to try to drive that car to his pits.
Well, Mario Andretti moving around, we believe that he was told not to leave as they were leaving the pit area. His crewman on the left rear is trying to stop the proceedings, but no communication there at that point. The crewman knew that the wheel was not done. Mario leaves the pit area, and now he has to move around this racetrack, an unusual sight on 3 wheels.
The 3-wheeled vehicle of Mario Andretti moving toward the pit as we have completed 160 laps, and we're set up for a great finish here in Milwaukee.
At Audio Innovations, stunning sound from the new digital audio disc. Read by a laser with virtually no noise or distortion. Audio Innovations has more than 10 models of compact disc players to choose from, with prices beginning at less than $500. Audio Innovations also has the best selection of digital discs in the upper Midwest. The best selection of digital audio from the best stereo store in town. Audio Innovations near Southdale in Edina.
In 1905, Albert Einstein discovered the perfect media formula for 1984. E equals MC squared. Effectiveness equals more cable. Incredibly, Einstein's theory forecast 2 television Americas, with one of them, Cable America, becoming too big for advertisers to ignore. Advertisers need cable to reach these cable Americans who are watching more cable and less conventional TV. With great pride, cable TV salutes Albert Einstein, the greatest media man who ever lived.
We hope that you are joining Larry, me, and sometimes Gary Lee for our weekly auto racing show, Speed Week. It's on every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We feature the drivers and the teams and also highlight the week's activity in the world of motorsports. Join us for Speed Week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday nights here on ESPN. Rick Mears, there's a study in
Bob,
getting me out of the pits.
I think what was going on there as we look at the front runners in this race, Rick Mears still the leader, Al Unser Jr. next, then Tom Sneva.
Michael Andretti running fourth, and Al Unser Sr. is fifth. They are on the track soaking up the oil put down by Bobby Rahal, so we'll take this break and be right back.
You can't build a bike for the Olympics by machine. Each tube's got to be custom fit to transfer weight into forward momentum. After all, a champion should ride a champion.
To everyone who's working hard for America's Olympic effort, this Bud's for you.
Heavyweight champion of the work.
Dickies work clothes. It's the best-selling work set in America because it's made of the heaviest, toughest fabric in America, fortified with Fortrell. We don't have to knock out the competition. We wear them out. Dickies, the heavyweight champion of the work. Dickies makes everything in work clothes. But who says you have to work in them?
Welcome back to State Fair Park in Milwaukee. The yellow remains out because of Bobby Rahal's blown engine. They're still over on the backstretch putting the oil dry down. Here are the top 10 with 162 laps completed. Rick Mears the leader. Al Unser Jr. running second. Tom Sneva is third. Michael Andretti fourth, and Al Unser Sr. running in fifth position. Sixth place, Gordon Johncock. Seventh is Howdy Holmes. Eighth, Chip Ganassi. Ninth is Kevin Cogan, and 10th is Danny Ungaius. Now, we're going to see how fast Tom Sneva really is. Rick Mears is in the lead, but Tom Sneva is actually ahead of him on the racetrack. So, we're going to see if Tom can make up that lap and get back into a competitive situation with Rick Mears. The green comes out once again. By the way, Bobby Rahal did not have a blown engine, despite the fact that there was a lot of smoke pouring from that engine. As a matter of fact, he is still out there on the racetrack.
Well, here's the situation. Rick Mears has about, I'd estimate 3/4 of a lap lead on Tom Sneva. We have 36 laps to go in this race. Mears right now is in heavy traffic. Sneva probably has that figured out, even though he can't see Rick right now. You see Rick in a bright yellow car. They're making it easy for you to pick out Rick Mears here this weekend. And Rick is driving harder probably than anybody on the racetrack right now, even harder than Sneva, because he knows for every second that he is caught in traffic, Tom Sneva is out front making up ground. The question is, can Tom Sneva pick up 3/4 of a lap in just 35 laps? Sneva appears to have been a little faster than Rick most of the day, but I don't know. 3/4 of a lap in just 35, that is a mighty tall order. There you see Mears now working on, I think it was tail Bobby he was going underneath. Heavy, heavy traffic. Now he moves up on Howdy Holmes. Howdy Holmes running in the top 10. Rick Mears running as hard as he possibly can because he knows that Sneva is out front with a clear racetrack just around this 1 mile oval.
Well, we have seen instances of blocking in Indianapolis type car racing, but not in that situation because the car that Rick Mears just left was Howdy Holmes, who is a teammate of Tom Sneva. Sneva running in the clean air and moving very quickly. Rick Mears still trying to pick off the back markers. Ed Pym right ahead of him now in turn number 2. Rick Mears moving to the inside and moving by quickly at the end of the backstretch, now into turn number 3. All we need is one more yellow, and that means that Tom Sneva would be able to make up that 3/4 of a lap. But for right now, we are under green with 168 laps completed, and Rick Mears is the leader in car number 6. Mears from Bakersfield, California. the Indianapolis 500 winner in 1979 and in 84, and he was the IndyCar champion in 79, 81, and 82.
Rick Mears, the last time around, the distance between himself and Sneva was 1 lap minus a straightaway as Rick was exiting turn number 2 right there. Tom Sneva was going into turn number 3. And I'll tell you, the laps are going by, I think, too quickly for Tom Sneva. If we stay green the rest of this race, Bob, I don't think he's got enough time, even if he's running a half a second faster.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was fortunate for Rick Mears that he was able to pit under yellow, but unfortunate for Tom Sneva that he came in during a green, and that is essentially the difference in this race at this point.
And that is literally nothing more than racing luck. What happened was, under a yellow flag condition on lap 90, they made an insurance stop, the Penske team did, and later on in the race, that allowed them to go further. They waited longer for a yellow, and it was what put them into the lead.
Second position belongs to Al Unser Jr. in the Coors Light Silver Bullet, car number 7. Everybody believes that a victory for Al Unser Jr. is just a few races away, but he's had trouble to this point.
What are the characteristics of the car that you don't like this weekend?
Well, the corners are very...
This was Al Unser Jr. with some comments before he qualified, and he got the handling problem straightened out for the most part during qualifying, as he was able to qualify for 8th starting position outside of row number 4, and right now he is in 2nd place behind Rick Mears. So it's going to be Al Unser Jr.'s best finish if he can hang on to that 2nd spot. 173 laps are completed. We have 27 to go in the Dana Rex Mays 200. We have had only 2 leaders in this race. Rick Mears, then Tom Sneva, and now Rick Mears once again. 2nd, Al Unser Jr. 3rd place is Tom Sneva. 4th is Michael Andretti. And running in 5th place is Al Unser Sr. So we'll be back with more live action from State Fair Park in Milwaukee in a moment.
My dandruff's back and I just shampooed.
Stop worrying and take your medicine. Tegrin Shampoo. Preventive medicine that helps control dandruff 3 days.
Bad dandruff? And I shampooed today.
Stop worrying and take your medicine. Tegrin. Preventive medicine that helps control dandruff 3 days. Ordinary shampoos just wash away flakes. Tegrin's proven medicine helps prevent dandruff, itching, and flaking.
Nice hair.
Took my medicine. Tegrin.
Tegrin. Preventive medicine that helps control dandruff 3 days.
This is a stress test. Rick Mears, 1984 Indy 500 winner and the Pennzoil Penske Indy car had to run at speeds of over 200 miles per hour with the engine hitting over 10,000 RPM. This is a stress test, and this is no picnic for a motor oil. This is where Rick Mears, IndyCar champ, tests Pennzoil's quality and high technology to the limit. That's why you want Pennzoil protection in your car. Pennzoil, high technology and quality. Ask for it.
ESPN, your #1 auto racing network, today live at State Fair Park in Milwaukee for this 200-mile IndyCar race, the first of 8 that will bring you live this year on ESPN. And the leader is Rick Mears, followed by Al Unser Jr. and Tom Sneva. Mears in the number 6 Pennzoil March with a Cosworth engine down backstretch, still incredible finish. Let's talk with the winner. Here is Gary Lee.
Tom, no matter how much racing savvy you have, sometimes it's lady luck.
Well, we got a little help there at the end. I'm not sure how we got so far behind, but they made us run real hard at the end, and we were gaining, but, you know, we got a little help at the end, and the guys did a super job, so what can I say?
It looked to us like at the start of the race you had something to prove, maybe a little vindictive after last week at the Speedway.
No, not really. You know, we felt we had a good shot at the Speedway, and we came here to race, and that's exactly what we did. We slip and slid all day and brought the Texaco Star home #1.
You had the disadvantage of running without the radios today, so the crew could not tell you about the smoke coming off car number 6.
Yeah, I didn't have any idea. They gave me some minus signs, and it looked like I was picking him up, but, you know, I was a little confused how we got so far behind in the first